right, tonight you're going to see different examples of speeches. You're also seeing good examples of hard work and dedication. Many of the people that are performing tonight were sitting where you were sitting last year during speech night. In some instances, in the spring semester, they watched the presentations and said, that looks interesting, I think I want to give it a try. And so they're up here performing tonight. So I would like to invite all of you to seriously think about trying this activity. You have everything to gain and nothing to lose. With that, I'd like to turn the microphone over to our first introducer, which is Anthony Allen.
Persuasive speaking is an 8 to 10 minute speech where the speaker presents a problem and solutions to that problem. Eric Gentry is a first-year student who earned first place at our first tournament in September, hosted by San Francisco State University, to persuade us that felony boxes on job applications should be eliminated. Please join me in welcoming Eric Gentry.
Frank Capeners had an interview for a grassroots campaign in San Francisco in April 2012. He had done an excellent job on the phone and was invited for a second interview in person. Mr. Capeners brought his resume with him, filled out an application, and the in-person interview went quite well until the interviewer noticed the 6-year gap of employment and asked to see Mr. Capeners' application. Frank's application indicated that he had been convicted of a felony. He had checked yes in the felony box, and after his brief explanation, was informed that they do not hire people with felony convictions. The felony box is disadvantageous, as it prevents thousands of ex-felons from gainful employment, many of whom have turned their lives around and are doing their best to be productive members of society. What's worse is that they are unaccounted for by the Bureau of Labor Statistics, according to their website, on September 9th, 2013. This means that more and more ex-felons are falling through the cracks, making it increasingly difficult to reintegrate into society. Removing the felony box from employment applications will provide all applicants with an equal opportunity to be hired. To do so, let's examine the effects that the felony box on job applications has on the applicants and society. Second, uncover the causes. And finally, consider some alternatives that would be more egalitarian. More than 2/3 of employers run criminal background checks on all of their potential employees, according to Forbes magazine on June 21st, 2013. And for anybody who has marked yes next to the felony box, he or she can almost guarantee that their application will be placed to the side and they will no longer be considered for the position. Moreover, the Center for Economic and Policy Research released a study on September 3rd, 2013, which found that a felony conviction significantly reduces the ability of ex-offenders to find jobs, costing the U.S. economy an estimated $57 to $65 billion annually in lost economic output, because they will, unfortunately, become a bigger burden to society. For example, felons in their first year out of prison face a 75% unemployment rate. Many ex-felons require public assistance and taxpayer help. Most ex-felons, of whom I am one, are on parole and have to pay fees associated with that. If we are unemployed and relying on public assistance, we are unable to pay these fees. Therefore, taxpayers and society continue to support unemployed ex-felons. The burden of unemployment caused by the felony box on job applications sadly precludes ex-felons from having the opportunity to contribute positively to a society to which we are trying to reacclimate. With a better understanding of the effects of this problem on ex-felons and taxpayers, let's examine the causes. The causes are twofold: structural and attitudinal. Structurally, the consequences of a conviction do not end with the sentence. Even after completing one sentence and terminating probation, an ex-felon can be forced to disclose his or her criminal history to others, particularly when applying for a job. Unfortunately, the felony box on job applications are standard throughout the nation, and do not distinguish among the different kinds of felonies, which, according to Public Records Guide on September 10th, 2013 include financial crimes, drug offenses, DUI offenses, violent crimes such as murder, rape, or assault using a weapon, robbery, and battery. Drug offenses, for example, include illegal drug sales, possession of large amounts of drugs, selling drugs to minors, and illegal use of drugs. Attitudinally, a 2012 study by the National Employment Law Project suggested that many employers refuse to consider people with criminal records for a wide range of jobs, despite the fact that the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission, or the EEOC, has advised employers that flat bans may be illegal. For example, Vanessa Nelson of Expert Human Resources on March 10, 2013, shared a story of an ex-felon who completed an application that was sent to her for screening and interviewing. Upon noticing that the applicant was a convicted felon, Ms. Nelson asked what the felony was. The applicant told her it was assault and battery. Ms. Nelson's response was that she wanted to hang up and never speak to this person again. She said that immediately these thoughts ran through my head. I know that people can change. However, how do we know if this person has changed? If we give this felon a chance to work at our company and he harms someone, will I be guilty of negligence in hiring? Or if we give him a chance and he succeeds and becomes the best employee we ever hired, will we be proud? How will it affect our employees? Attitudes such as Ms. Nelson's put more ex-felons at a disadvantage. As the American Correctional Association reported on September 3rd, 2013, that was 6.7 million people on probation, in jail, prison, or on parole by the end of 2013, and at least 95% of those currently incarcerated who will be released from custody, that many more people will be entering the workplace. We ex-felons must compete with the rest of society for jobs, and our prospects are bleak by comparison, particularly in states like Texas, where majority of hiring is for low-income wages, according to the Journal on August 16, 2013. The negative effects and causes of this problem warrant solutions on both the institutional and individual levels. An ex-felon should have an equal opportunity for gainful employment based on their qualifications and not their criminal history. To that end, the EEOC has well-established guidelines prohibiting the discrimination of ex-felons through Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, which is broadly interpreted to suggest that employers cannot use criminal records in screening for employment. This is called the Ban the Box Law. Employers with Ban the Box laws cannot ask about criminal histories on a job application, so as to ensure that all applicants are at least pre-qualified before asking about criminal histories. Most recently, officials in Richmond, California, approved an ordinance that forbids employers from requiring applicants to reveal their criminal histories at any point during the application or hiring process, according to the Huffington Post on August 6, 2013. Furthermore, the Journal of Business and Economic Policy Research's May 2013 edition contends that providing felons with employment opportunities may reduce recidivism rates, either by increasing the opportunity cost of crime or by providing marketable skills that can be used in place of criminal activity. The Ban the Box campaign is not asking employers to discontinue background checks. It is simply there to ensure that everybody has a fair chance at the available position. As individuals, we can all do our part by going to bantheboxcampaign.org and take the pledge. Sign the petition asking California to ban the felony box from employment applications. Pledge to open up opportunities for people with past convictions in our workplace. To institute fair hiring policies concerning past convictions. This is something everyone here can do. It is as easy as putting your name and email address and joining the fight. Every voice matters, and enough people showing compassion towards banning the felony box will have an impact. Today, I address the negative impacts of felony boxes on job applications by examining the effects, uncovering the causes, and providing some solutions that will hopefully help ex-felons like me reintegrate more smoothly into society and save taxpayers money. An ex-felon is more likely to avoid reoffending or recidivism if they are employed. That is at least 8 hours of their day where they are occupied and left with a feeling of pride and a sense of belonging. Moreover, We all know that to be employed means we have money to spend, which means that we are all contributing and doing our part to better our economy and, more important, our society.
When students ask me what oral interpretation is, I usually say it's kind of like acting, but it's different. It's kind of like public speaking, but it's not. It's really the best of both worlds. So there's a little bit of acting, it feels like it, and a little bit of public speaking. Our next performer is Brian Nelson, who's one of the senior members on the team. Brian has received numerous awards in many different events, including oral interpretation and debate, most recently a gold medal at the national tournament last year in Reader's Theater. Please welcome to the stage, Brian Nelson.
If I tell someone that I coach, they invariably ask, what kind? Because now, so many people use the word coach to describe what they do. I mean, we have life coaches, business coaches, success coaches, relationship coaches, weight loss coaches, even debate coaches. Everyone is a coach. And to be honest, there have been times when I've been really bitter about what I perceive as the overuse of the word coach. For years, I've harbored this inner resentment. Anytime anyone said that they were a coach, or mentioned a coach that wasn't involved with the sports team, I mean, how dare they steal our term of endearment? In the 14th century, wealthy families had servants read to them as they rode in coaches to nearby cities. So really, the first coaches took people from where they were to where they wanted to go, helping them learn along the way. Fast forward to today, with Mike Rice's termination from Rutgers University for verbal abuse, the true value of coach has been tainted. Through poetry, The Ditch by Michael Ryan, prose, Why They Call You Coach by Kirk Mango, and Why All of Us Should Care About What Happened at Rutgers by Brian Hunt, and drama, Miracle, written by Eric Guggenheim, Survive and Advance by Jonathan Hawk, The Basketball Game, Season 10, Episode 20 of Mad TV, written by Keegan-Michael Key, and an interview by Vernon Davis and Mike Singletary, we will be reminded of the true value of coaching and the impact it has on its athletes. It's probably not like this anymore, but every coach in my hometown was a lunatic. Time out! Time out! What are you guys doing out there, you mother grabbers, huh? What are you doing? All right, new strategy, new strategy. You lose this game, and I will murder you, okay? Every single one of you, multiple stab wounds. Now go out there and have some fun. Steve, if you let that guy get past you, I will cut your body in half with the edge of a coin. Don't think it can't be done. You're gonna get it, Steve. You're getting it right to the neck. Blow dart, right to the neck. Each had different quirks we mimicked, beloved bromides whose parodies we intoned. But they all conducted practice like boot camp, the same tirades and abuse, no matter the sport, the next game, the next battle, in a never-ending war. You guys don't want to work during the game? Fine, we'll work now. Goal line, that one, go! Come on, hustle! You think you can win on talent alone? Gentlemen, you don't have enough talent to win on talent alone. Again. I want you to think about something else, each and every one of you. When you put on that jersey, you represent yourself and your teammates. Again. Because the name on the front of the jersey is a hell of a lot more important than the name on the back. Get that through your heads. Again. Now, people often ask me where I get my motivation from. Because I know, I'm pretty intense to be around 24/7. But when they ask me that, I just smile and I say it's my father. Because every day of my life, my father believed in me no matter what. He believed in me when I failed. He believed in me when I wasn't as fine a son, a friend, a husband, a father as I could be, and I wasn't all of that. He believed in me when I didn't live up to my or someone else's standard. He would look me in the eye and he'd say, "You're gonna make it. I know you are. You're gonna make it." And it was the greatest gift he could have given me. And now, because of him, I always think to myself, how many people can I give that to? How do I show that I believe in them like my father believed in me? As coaches, any type of coach, we need to continually ask ourselves, are we taking others where they really want to go? Are we just taking them someplace we think they should go? Even worse, are we just using them as a tool to get where we want to go? My old high school football coach, Don Campo, spunky bug of a man, bald and bronze, all biceps and pecs, raging at some attitude of mine. I mean, raging. Scarlet veins bulging from his neck. Owens! If you don't stay in that zone, son, you're going to disappear so fast, you'll be dead and buried before the amber alert goes out. Oh, you know what this is? Oh, it's my crystal ball. You know what I see? You. Parking lot. After the game. Shot to the head. Oh, a little compound bow action, huh? Legolas! 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 His violence was verbal, which we were used to, having gotten it from our fathers and then passed it down to our brothers and one another since we were old enough to button our own pants. Any minute, no guessing what might trigger it, he'd be buttoning your face mask or barking up your nostrils. But generally, he favored an unruffled moralistic carpet, in which I, happy to spot phoniness, saw pride and bitterness masquerading as teaching. You have to focus, son. You have to focus. And from that moment on, every pass that I dropped, every block that I missed, I always envisioned Coach Singletary in my head saying, "Come on, son. You got all the tools in the world." Are we teaching those we are responsible for some valuable life lessons during the ride? Because it can't just be about sport, wins, losses, championships, or whatever we're coaching them in. There has to be something more than that. Are they learning anything about themselves? Have they developed some skills and life lessons that they can use outside the lines? Because that is the true value of sports. They think they're just playing a game, but what they're actually experiencing is a microcosm of life that will lay the foundation for the way they live their lives in the future. I learned this philosophy when I was 16 years old from the Reverend Bob Birches when he spoke at my basketball camp. He looked at all of us young players and he said, "The Lord must have loved ordinary people because he made so many of us." And honestly, hearing that, it got me a little down because I wanted to be special. But then he said the line that changed my life forever. I was 16, I felt it then. I'm 41 years old now. I still feel it today. He said, every single day, in every walk of life, ordinary people do extraordinary things. This cannot be a team of common men, because common men go nowhere. You have to be uncommon. Again, coaches, the next time you huddle up, sit in a locker room, or give your next pregame speech, take an extra second and think. Before you craft your next inspirational word, look into their eyes. See them for who they really are in that moment. Young men and women that are in need of molding and are looking to you for it. As a coach, it's one of the most gratifying things to see. It's like your kids. It's like you're talking to one of your kids, and finally, a light goes on. And they get it. You got it. I want to take this opportunity to thank you, Coach. It's a beautiful thing what you did for me. If we wouldn't have met, I wouldn't have the courage or any of the other qualities that make me a leader. You saved my career. But more importantly, you made me into the person I am today.
We are on to the next event, informative speaking. The purpose of an informative speech is to amaze and amuse the audience with news you can use. And as you all know, informative topics should not be controversial. MARNIE SALVANI is a senior member of our team who has won numerous awards in debate, interpretation of literature, and persuasive speaking, and of course, informative speaking. Please welcome MARNIE SALVANI as she informs us of the hollow flashlight.
Hi high school science fairs, which began in the 1950s, are thrilling, as they are the breeding ground for innovation in science and technology, and have produced 7 Nobel Prize winners. These innovations pique the interest of every young scientist, and 15-year-old Anne Makosinski is no exception. For her 2013 Google Science Fair entry, she introduced an invention that could revolutionize alternative energy. Makosinski created the hollow flashlight, a device that uses absolutely no batteries. This technological innovation could pave the way toward harvesting surplus energy, that which surrounds us and that which is within us. No, I'm not talking about the hot air that comes out of our mouths, but the heat from our bodies, or specifically, the heat from the human hand. According to the World Bank on July 15, 2013, over 1.2 billion people, or 20% of the world's population, are still without access to electricity, and almost all of whom live in developing countries. Access to electricity must be environmentally and socially sustainable for everyone. The hollow flashlight can start another era of enlightenment, of a more literal variety. So let's get better acquainted with the hollow flashlight, as it can be a great emergency flashlight for developed nations, and a boon for developing nations with limited access to batteries. In the next few minutes, I hope to enlighten with the background of flashlights. Second, shine some light on how the hollow flashlight works, before illuminating the future implications of this imaginative technology. Before we can truly understand the innovation of the hollow flashlight and its use of body heat as its power source, first we need to look at the flashlights that we use today. Traditional flashlights use batteries to power the light bulbs. The batteries that we use are more commonly called dry cell batteries, which stores electrical energy in the form of chemical energy and converts that energy into electricity. When placed in a flashlight, batteries create an electrical current that flows through contacts and brings the electricity to the light bulb. Energizer's website, last updated in 2013, states that a thin wire in the light bulb, the filament, contains the element tungsten, which glows when in contact with electricity, producing a visible light. The light reflects off the reflector resting around the light bulb, creating the telltale beam of flashlights. However, with increased concerns about environmental impacts, newer flashlights now use inventive power sources and energy-efficient light sources, such as LEDs. For example, squeeze flashlights require the user to repeatedly, squeeze a handle, which spins a flywheel inside the flashlight, attached to a small dynamo, supplying an electrical current to the light bulb. The Faraday flashlight, or shake flashlight, is charged when a user shakes it, causing a magnet to slide through a coil of wire to generate electricity. Finally, the wind-up, or crank-powered flashlight, is powered by a battery, which is recharged by a generator, turned by a hand crank on the flashlight. Now, we have Anne Makosinski's invention, which does not need any batteries, nor does it need any elbow grease to make work. According to the Christian Science Monitor, on October 2nd, 2013, the hollow flashlight uses the heat from our hands as its power source. Now that we're enlightened with the background of flashlights, let's shine some light on how the hollow flashlight works. The key to the hollow flashlight are Peltier tiles, which Discovery News reported on July 1st, 2013, will generate electricity when one side of the tile is heated and the other is cooled, like a thermos, where the inside keeps your coffee hot and the outside remains cool. First, the question was whether enough electricity could be made just from holding the flashlight. Humans generate a lot of heat, and therefore potentially electricity. But Makosinski did not have the whole body to work with, just one average palm. NBC News stated on June 20th, 2013, that Makosinski determined that the heat of a person's hand generates about 57 milliwatts of electricity, more than enough for the half of a milliwatt needed to illuminate her flashlight's LED. Next, she got the parts together. Several Peltier tiles, which can be used repeatedly, like solar panels, and unlike batteries, and a few other bits necessary to make the current usable by a normal LED. Finally, Makosinski mounted the tiles and circuitry onto a hollow aluminum tube, which enables it to sustain cooler temperatures in spite of a warmer environment. She also placed the aluminum tube inside a PVC tube to provide further insulation, and she cut out a slit for the user's hand to touch the tiles. Air inside the tube would cool the Peltier tiles, while the warmth of a hand would heat the other side, and thus create electricity. Her 2013 Google Science Fair entry on April 30th, 2013 stated that her invention provided a modest amount of light, about 5.4 milliwatts, at a brightness of 5-foot candles, and worked for a half hour at an ambient temperature of 50 degrees Fahrenheit. In fact, Makosinski is currently in talks with a flashlight company to manufacture her creation. She points out that she will try to improve her design by sealing off the electrical components in some sort of casing so that it won't get heavily exposed to the elements, such as water, and therefore last longer. In addition, she hopes that with added popularity, the current cost to produce one hollow flashlight, $26, could drop significantly, not to mention improve the quality of the circuit's components. However, if you consider the price of a standard flashlight and the cost of batteries over time, the hollow flashlight is a bargain, because after the initial cost, all you need is body heat. After lighting up just how it works, we'll illuminate the future implications. While many of us don't use flashlights on a daily basis, it's not hard to imagine that everyone has one, for emergencies, for camping, or for playing flashlight tag in your backyard. Furthermore, we use an enormous amount of batteries. According to the EPA, nearly 3 billion dry cell batteries are purchased in the United States each year. Most of them are not rechargeable and end up in landfills, where the toxic chemicals and heavy metals can seep into soil and groundwater. Harvesting energy, like with this flashlight, could provide a lot of potential for powering small devices, like flashlights on miner hats, not with batteries, but with an alternative power source, body heat. According to the Digital Journal on July 3, 2013, the hollow flashlight does not use any batteries, toxic chemicals, or kinetic energy, does not create any noise or vibrations, and will always work. It'll keep going and going and going. However, the largest drawback in our current design is the temperature limitations. The flashlight needs at least a 5-degree temperature difference to provide usable light, though Makosinski was able to maintain illumination for 30 minutes, as reported by CBC News on June 27, 2013, enough time to search for candles in a power outage, or to go for a short walk. Although this won't make batteries obsolete overnight, it obviously has earth-shattering potential for saving energy and for developing new, clean, cheap technologies. The Energy Harvesting Journal on July 5, 2013 states that Makosinski had ideas for what her invention could lead to in the future. She says, imagine holding your phone and at the same time charging it just with the heat of your hand. Or perhaps all school chairs and classrooms having Peltier tiles, and we can harvest the heat and amplify it into electricity using my method. It is but a means of showing what this concept and what human heat energy can do. However, the first use would be as an emergency flashlight in emergency kits. Makosinski would also like to see it as a light source for people in places and countries where electricity is not available or too expensive to install. According to the aforementioned World Bank, about 550 million in Africa and over 400 million in India, more than the population of the entire United States, does not have access to electricity. Makosinski's invention could be the first step in lighting the way. In the last few minutes, I've enlightened you all with the background of flashlights, shown some light on how the hollow flashlight works, and finally illuminated the future implications. In fact, according to the UN Foundation, on October 15, 2013, United Nations Secretary General Ban Ki-moon's Advisory Group on Energy and Climate Change, composed of global business leaders and heads of UN agencies, has called for a major UN initiative to achieve universal access to modern energy services by 2030. Anne Magnusinski, may only be 15 years old, but her creativity and her recent entry at her high school science fair shows us that something as simple as the hollow flashlight could provide the warm light for all of us to share.
All right, so for the final presentation that we'll be doing tonight, it will be a parliamentary debate between two different teams. Now, for a little background for parliamentary debate, if anyone here has taken a Speech 6 class, then they took the Introduction to Argumentation and Debate. But for the others that have not, a little background on it. With inside parliamentary debate, it's a two-person per each side of the resolution. You have a government team, and then you have an opposition team. And what will oftentimes be discussed with inside these rounds range from anything from domestic politics to international conflicts, and also domestic affairs. And it pretty much scans the entire range of possible scenarios out in the world. Additionally, the format that typically takes place in a regular tournament style, you'll have 20 minutes of preparation after the resolution is announced. And at a tournament, you'll typically have these 6 preliminary rounds, which will then translate into tournament-style format where they're elimination rounds. The time limits for each speech vary from each speech, but just for tonight's sake, to try and get out of here on a decent time, we have limited everything down to 5 minutes for all the primary speeches and then 3 minutes for the rebuttals. We'll have obviously 2 sides tonight. With on the affirmative side, or the government side, will be the team of SARA WIERINGA and ROXIE Gallegos. They're both new members of the debate team this year and have had a lot of success with inside the arena of parliamentary debate this year, and are looking to set their sights to attending the state and national tournament in the springtime. So they'll be the ones affirming the resolution, so y'all can come out now. And then on the opposition side, or negating the resolution, will be the team of Alice Hoover and Anthony Clark. Now, Alice is a second-year member of the team, and she attended last year's state and national tournament and had a lot of success last year and is continuing to do a very good job this year. Whereas Anthony Clark recently joined the team this year and has been doing a fabulous job and holding up his end of the deal with his partnership with Alice. So without further ado, Alice Hoover and Anthony Clark. Woo! Okay, so the resolution tonight, I'll wait for y'all to get seated. So the resolution that they will be debating in front of you tonight will be the United States federal government should raise the minimum wage.
All right, quick round of thank yous for everyone being here tonight. Once again, the resolution here tonight is the United States federal government should raise the federal minimum wage. Some definitions I'll go ahead and define for you tonight is federal minimum wage at $7.25. Some background. 1, federal minimum wage was established to ensure that all minimum wages were being paid fairly to workers. 2, the minimum wage in 2007 was set to $5.85 per hour. Then $6.55 per hour effective 2008, thus consequently beginning in July 2009. The federal minimum wage was raised to $7.25 per hour, according to the United States Department of Labor. Criteria. For those of you who don't know, in the policy round debate, it's a net beneficial round, which means whichever team impacts the most amount of people will win this round. Plan text. A little analysis. If we do the quick math, we can see that since 2007, the federal minimum wage has been raised by 70 cents every year until 2009. Therefore, the agent, United States federal government, through a law signed by President Barack Obama, will raise the minimum federal wage to $10.25, effective immediately. Funding here would be through normal means. Enforcement also normal means. And so our plan here accounts for the steady rise of inflation of 2.1%, plus the 70 cents we have not gained per year for the federal minimum wage. So our advantage 1 here is titled Making Ends Meet. Our harms here is 1, according to Forbes.com on October 16, 2013, $7 billion in annual costs of public assistance was given to employees in different areas of jobs as far as Walmart, McDonald's, Subway, Burger King, in those jobs. So 2, companies do not pay their workers enough to actually have a stable living in 2013. For example, Forbes also stated that a Walmart in Canton, Ohio, they fundraised food for their own people. So the Walmart employees and the staff, they had a fundraiser to fundraise food for their own people who are working there, their own employees. So we can see that minimum wage can't even afford to put food on the table for their own employees here. 3, since the federal minimum wage has not been raised in 6 years, President Obama stated on the New York Times that a family with 2 kids that earns the minimum wage still lives below the poverty line. 4, the cost of food has increased, and in 2014 is expected to be over 2.5%. Links. The link is that the plan is going to pass, allowing employees a much-needed raise here. Internal links. 1, when plan goes into effect, we keep up with the government's standards of caring about minimum wage. Our second internal link here is that the plan then allows hard-working families to come above the poverty line. Our third internal link is that it will put more money in employees' pockets to spend into our economy, creating stimulus. Impacts here today. Our biggest impact here today is that we can actually solve for the working poor. The people who are working 40 plus hours a week on minimum wage, yet they still need assisted living. Our second impact here is that a $3 increase in federal minimum wage will impact individuals who do not have that economic opportunity to live a sufficient living. I know if you guys were at a minimum wage right now, $7.25, who doesn't want a $3 raise? Imagine how much money that's going to give you. Can you know? Here, 3, overall, this will impact the quality of life, allowing the 4.3 million people who earn the minimum wage to live a better life. So you can go out there and purchase the shoes that you want to buy, or the clothes that you want to buy, or the food that you want to buy, the food in the cafeteria. You don't have to go for the bag of chips anymore. You can go for the curly fries and the double bacon cheeseburger. So with that being said, our plan here is going to ultimately help and improve the lives of not only the students here at Solano, but anyone who is having a minimum wage job right now. With the $3 increase, I don't see who's not going to be happy with that.
Woo.
Alright, so for those of you that are following the debate, I'm going to have 2 pieces of paper off case, which means I'm going to do 2 new positions for our team, and then I'm going to go back on case to address what Roxie had brought up in her first speech. Alright, so the first thing that I'm going to do is a disadvantage on capitalism. The uniqueness is that the United States currently works under a capitalist economic structure, and capitalism turns people into machines, and we have to work for the profit motive and the division of labor. We all know how if you have a job, it seems like you always have to keep working just to make ends meet. And no matter what happens, it seems like you're just continuously working in this endless cycle. Now the link is that the plan is going to pass, and now capitalism is going to create more people who feel like they're just working through, kind of like working through the day just to meet ends meet, and you have to keep doing that day after day, and it's never enough to really save up anything or get out of this kind of place where you get stuck. The internal link is that the plan overall, it might have a short-term gain for you, as you'll have an increase of wages for the short term, but it doesn't deal with a long-term positive because it operates under capitalism. And a lot of things that people see is when in capitalism, when you get an increase of money, they tend to increase the prices. Think of how when you go to get gas one day, it might be $3.25, and the next day it's almost $4. That's a big jump for gas, and if you get a little bit of money when you're working, it's not going to equal to anything if you still have to pay more money for the food that you're buying, the gas that you're putting in your car. So overall, this is something that we need to look to if we're going to try and get any money or gains from our economy. So the impacts of this is that this plan increases inflation, because what the people who own the companies think is if you have more money to spend, then why not hike up the prices so that you have to pay more and they make more profit. So overall, that's going to increase inflation, and all the goods we're trying to buy now are just going to cost more. So we're not going to see any real benefits. But the second impact is that this overall perpetuates low wages and we get to feel stuck. Just like now, how even though we've had the minimum wage for a while and they keep raising it, people are still stuck in poverty and they're not able to get out of it. It's because people keep raising the prices whenever they raise the minimum wage. So everybody just kind of gets stuck in this cycle where you're not able to move forward in your life. The third impact here is that this leads to capital flight. For example, the very Walmart example that they gave you, in Bangladesh, they pay their workers $75 a month. The reason that they go over there is because they're able to pay them less money for the same amount of work. So if companies see now they have to pay more money here, then they're just going to take their jobs elsewhere where they can pay less money. And that's overall going to be bad because then we're not going to have any jobs to make any sort of money. So this brings me to the next off-case position, which is a counterplan. The counterplan is that the United States federal government will switch back to a barter system, and the funding and enforcement will be through normal means. So what this means is you could just take something that you want and trade it for something. Say, I really like Roxie's shoes. And I'm like, hey Roxie, you want to trade those shoes for this cool new jacket I just got? And she'd be like, sure, that's a great idea. And then we'll just trade. It's an easy way to go about this. And you can see that our counterplan is a lot better because it doesn't actually deal with the negative repercussions of capitalism where you see them prices increase, you see people sending their jobs away. Instead, everything's going to stay here and people will be able to trade in a kind of open market. But also, the only reason that the people who are in poverty, like they talk about in their advantage, is because of capitalism. If it wasn't for all of these capitalist ideals and people who, or companies who think they need to raise the prices whenever people get any extra money, then we wouldn't see so many people living in poverty. So overall, our plan is a lot better because we can try and get people out of poverty and avoid the disadvantage of just kind of perpetuating that cycle. No shame. Anyway, so let's go on to advantage one. Now, the main thing they're trying to tell you is that a lot of people are having a hard time making ends meet. And that's true, this is a really big issue. But this is really where you're going to be voting for the opposition, or Clark and I, because we show you how if you have the minimum wage raised, and companies just keep raising your prices, then you're just going to be stuck and nothing's going to happen. So you can see that overall, we solve for the problems that they present better because we allow for people a way to make money, a way to trade their goods for something of equal value without having to worry about increased prices. And overall, they don't solve back for inflation. So we could solve back a lot better because they don't take into account the price increase that will happen. And if we have an open market where we can just go back to the bartering system where you can trade one thing for another, then it would be easy for me to trade my jacket for Roxie's shoes without having to worry about her charging me an arm and a leg for it. Because overall, Roxie's a very reasonable person and she'll be willing to trade with me. Thank you.
Okay, for anybody who's going to be flowing this, I'm going to start off case on their disadvantage, go to counterplan, and then I will be going back onto our advantage. So thank you to my opponents, to my partner, and to everybody for being here. Going on to their disad titled Capitalism. Basically today we have two paths, a plan from the government and a counterplan. The government's plan is to raise minimum wage to $10.25 or go back to the counterplan's idea, which would be bartering for your needs. If we look at capitalism, it's something that's made the United States one of the strongest economies, and that's why it was put into place. China has followed suit with the United States and built their economy up on capitalism, and they are also now a successful economy. When we talk about the argument of the grind in the machine and that people are stuck in this, unfortunately, this is something that we do need. We need this grind in order to feed our families and meet our needs. And this is something that is our economy and how it works. Capitalism allows people to work harder and to achieve their goals and create innovative ideas. On their internal link where they say that we've not, on their internal link where it says that it talks about inflation, we can see through our background how inflation has increased, but federal minimum wage has not increased. So there's a gap in there that once our plan is put into effect, there will be a huge amount of money that is available to the people, even though inflation has been rising. Capitalism is not bad, and when we're given these opportunities, we're able to make a better life for ourselves. Going on to their impacts, inflation would still happen, but like I said, government plan accounts for that time and lag where inflation has been increasing, but federal minimum wage has not been increasing. This perpetuates, the argument that this perpetuates minimum wage, and there's been this perpetuates minimum wage,
and we won't be able to see this. Again, that huge gap of time, once we see that $3 into our pocket, that will be a huge impact on our lives that we will see. And the inflation that's happened currently will be accounted for as we have that money into our pocket. On the argument of capital flight and outsourcing, the counterplan doesn't account for the outsourcing that would happen. Essentially, these Walmart workers we're talking about domestically wouldn't even have money if there is no federal minimum wage increase. And these families, as we've seen through the example where they're fundraising for their own families, these people are currently under the poverty line. So if they're under the poverty line, how can they even have money to trade and barter within the counterplan system? On to their fourth impact of alienation is, again, my partner eloquently said in our background, that there's 4.3 people who are currently paid under federal minimum wage, and this does not create alienation by a large number of 4.3 people. On to their counterplan. The barter system will never work because it's an outdated system from about 500 years ago. Can you imagine right now trying to trade with China with your shoe or your apple? I don't think it would be work, as most countries work on, or all countries work on a currency system. And if we get rid of our federal minimum wage, we would be trading, and that would not be effective. Going on to my second point is people without quality items to trade. Luckily, Roxie has great shoes, and Alice has a nice jacket. But there's some people here within community college and in our society that don't have these nice items to barter and trade. So as they go out into their, under counterplan, if they go out into the world and they're supposed to trade their items, if they have a half-eaten apple, they're probably going to get a holy pair of shoes. Even more, the people, like I said, at Walmart, the people who don't even have money, who are poor, they are not allowed, or they will not be able to trade at all. Therefore, they will remain under the poverty line. And as my partner said, we're accounting for the people who are under this poverty line. If we compare government's plan to counterplan, capitalism allows a better quality of life for the 4.3 million people who are currently on minimum wage, not to mention the other people outside of this statistic. While counterplan doesn't allow any kind of leverage out of poverty or better opportunities. Going on to our case, the advantage one, making ends meet. The argument that she said that people are able to make money, there's no way to make money in a bartering system, so this argument goes away. So I would like you to go ahead and look at our plan and flow across everything we said. When they don't fight our harms, it means that the opposition agrees that there are problems. The workers at Walmart need something to trade. And also this will bring across a better political awareness, as if the government team is allowed to give money, people will feel better faith in their government than if they leave them stranded with just a bartering system. Vote government.
That was Sparta.
All right, for those of you who are following tonight, I'm going to go off case to the disadvantage that my partner brought up, and then I'm going to go back on case to the government team's advantage, and then I'm going to talk a little bit about our counter plan to wrap it up. So let's go ahead and dig right into this. I want to thank all you guys for being here tonight. I want to thank my partner for being here, and I want to thank the government team for being here as well, going here under the disadvantage one that my partner brought up in her speech. They're coming up here, the government team, and they're talking about how the grind is necessary and capitalism allows people to work harder to get more. Think about it though. People are working harder today. Productivity within our capitalist economy is higher than it's really ever been before. And the income gap is also higher than it's ever been before. Ever. We are working so hard, and it's not paying off for us. And it's not paying off for us because we're functioning under an outdated plan. They say our plan is outdated, but Karl Marx certainly disagreed with that. In fact, Karl Marx theorized that capitalism was necessary in human production. It was. Capitalism was necessary in human production because it gave us the ability to get the infrastructure wherein production can occur. But capitalism isn't the future, clearly, because capitalism causes these problems that the government team is complaining about today. We have a capitalist economy right now, and we're suffering from poverty, we're suffering from starvation, we're suffering from wealth inequality, we're suffering from people not being able to pay for college tuition, so they have to go into debt. That's all side effects from capitalism. Think about it. Capitalism isn't serving you guys as students because it's forcing you to go into debt just to pursue something that you want to do with your own life. So capitalism is not solving for the harms presented to us today because it created those harms to begin with. They're talking about how there's a gap between inflation and wages. That's what we're bringing up in this disadvantage. There's a gap between wages and inflation. And when you increase wages, you're going to increase inflation. So they don't solve for that. You have to index the minimum wage to inflation to solve for that, which the government team is not doing. And so that just perpetuates the problem of low wages, because when we increase those minimum wages, now the businesses are in turn either going to leave because they're allowed to through free trade deals, or they're going to increase prices. So there's no long-term solvency here. You just perpetuate a problem that exists within the capitalist structure. You have to address the capitalist structure if you're going to solve those problems. So inflation will continue to wipe us out. They say that there's 4.3 million people who are underpaid. The opposition agrees with them today. The reason why they're underpaid is because capitalism allows them to be underpaid. And if we increase the minimum wage right now, guess what we're going to have to do next year? We're going to have to increase it again, and again, and again. We're going to have to keep having this debate because this debate is natural too in a capitalist economy. So we have to overthrow the capitalist economy peacefully if we're going to solve for these problems that the government team is saying. They're ignoring wealth inequality, they're not solving for it. It's perpetuated by a capitalist system, and that will continue on. So going to their advantage on case now, for those of you who are following tonight, she says that people cannot make money within a kind of barter economy. Exactly, that's the point. There's more to human life than making a profit, believe it or not. Humans have needs. They have to eat. They have to be able to provide for themselves. And what we're doing with our counter plan is we're going to open up the ability to do that, because now capital isn't privately owned. So if you have a great idea and you want to produce something from your own labor, you can do that, because now nobody owns the capital. It's publicly owned. You can do that now under the economy that we're saying. We remove the profit incentive. We get rid of this ridiculous wealth gap that exists right now, the fight between the rich and the poor, and we remove that profit incentive. Here under Advantage 1, their harms, we agree. These are significant problems that we face under the status quo. The problem is that these problems are perpetuated by the economic system that we're currently operating under. Their plan does not solve for inflation at all. So in a year, we're going to have this debate again, and again, and again, and again. It just perpetuates. So they're not solving any problem. You would never vote for a government plan in real life that doesn't solve for the problems that they say they solve for. It doesn't work. It's inefficient. Their plan doesn't solve for inflation. So we're going to have this problem again. You open up markets when you move from a privately owned system that incentivizes things like profit over human need. When you make that public, you open up markets, people can produce what they want for themselves and for each other. And with that profit margin removed, we can do things together. So going here under the counter plan, she said that the system we're speaking of is outdated. It's not outdated. It will be one final stage of human development that is necessary. As I've said before, capitalism was necessary in terms of history, but history is done. And we have to move on from capitalism, and we have to realize that it's not providing us with the solutions to our problems that we currently face. So I would point you towards Catalonia. Leading up to the Spanish Civil War, Catalonia adopted the very counter plan that I'm advocating tonight. When they adopted it, it worked. The only reason why they no longer exist isn't because the system failed, because it was inefficient. They didn't exist because the fascists in Spain took them over. It worked once, it will work again, and that's why you're voting for the opposition team tonight. Thank you.
Okay, finally, thank you to everyone for being here today. It's been a very lively and fun debate, so let me finally tell you why you're going to be voting for the opposition team today, and not the government. But, all right, so the main gist of what you're looking at today is we could either increase minimum wage, like the government team is suggesting, and have prices increase so nobody really gains anything, or you could try a system that's been proven to work. Like Clark came up and told you, Catalona is one example of where a barter system has worked well, and it's been proven to work well in the future without perpetuating these problems that the government team is trying to solve for. So if we can solve these problems by going with not really a new system, but a different system, then we can see that this will overall be a lot more beneficial to everyone. Instead of having to struggle to pay for your college tuition or to have to worry about getting money together from a job that might not pay so well, you can trade things that you already have to try and get ahead in life. Like if I have an old pair of shoes I don't want, I could trade those for something that I need now. And this is something that we need to look at, because even if Sarah tells you, well, maybe you only have a half-eaten apple. A half-eaten apple is better than having nothing at all, and it's still something you can try and trade. I mean, you might not get a lot for it, but hey, you can still try and move forward in the world. It's better than just getting a bad wage, especially with prices going up, where you can't really afford anything. So overall, you're going to be voting for the opposition team today, because our counter plan really solves for the issues that they're pointing out. We actually help solve back for the poverty that people are dealing with, and we also open it up so people can have a more open market and trade the things that they have available. I mean, think how often you guys have yard sales. That's all stuff that you could trade, and this is an idea that works together in the real world. So we can see that a barter system actually works really well. But overall, the plan to increase minimum wage really isn't a great plan when you don't deal with the increase of prices. If you go with the government team's plan, then you're basically just voting for the same exact thing we have right now. Bad wages, high prices, and a bunch of just sad impacts. But if you vote for the opposition team, then we can try and change that by adopting this new system, well, not new, but different system, and making progress with a system that has been proven to work and with something that everybody does in general anyway. But if you have lemons, why not make lemonade?
All right, one last big round of thank yous for everyone in the audience for being here tonight, as well as the opposition and my lovely partner, Sarah. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, a lot of information has been given out to you tonight. We've seen the opposition side as well as the government side, but let's go ahead and take a step back and look at the big picture here. Our criteria here today is on a net beneficial ground, which shows that we need to look at whoever impacts the most amount of people is going to ultimately win this round. So first of all, I just want to mention how Clark came up here and talked about the Catalona, but he never got to the end of the story where it says that, or where it actually mentioned, or it happened, where it failed. It ultimately failed. So on to their counterplan. Their counterplan has no solvency because the barter system will not work in the society that we live in today, not allowing for a better quality of life. So trading shoes for a jacket or $3 more an hour on a paycheck. I would go with the $3 more an hour on a paycheck. Our plan does solve for a better impact on the amount of people who we'd be affecting, which would allow the family with the 2 kids that I mentioned earlier, $6 more an hour to be raised out of the poverty line. Also helping the 4.3 million people who we can help and solve who are actually under the federal minimum wage right now. Secondly, we've shown you through our arguments that we need capitalism to make a more competitive market and more innovative people in our society. But audience members, this is a clear and easy decision of having a guarantee of $3 more an hour on your paycheck or trading. And so like my partner, or like the opposition said, Alice came up here and talked about my shoes and her jacket. Like I said, $3 more an hour is going to be easier because you're actually going to have money. You're actually going to have money to be able to buy things. Instead of, you actually need something in order to do trading. So if you don't have something to trade, you can't trade. So you're just going to be living off of whatever you have, if that's anything. So allowing more money in your pockets is just going to ultimately impact more lives here today, which is what the criteria here is on a net beneficial ground. So audience members, we're going to ask you to vote for the government here team today. Woo!
All right, so for the final thing, since we do not have ballots out here, and typically there would be a panel of judges, so you all will be judges in tonight's round. So if you all think that the government team that was going to increase the minimum wage won the debate round, let me get some knocking on your armrests. All right, and if you feel that the negative team, which was criticizing the essence of capitalism, won the debate round, please knock for them. Alright, well that sounds pretty even to me. So maybe for the first time in debate history, that would be a draw between both teams. So, nice job. Right on. Well, on behalf of the Solano Speech and Debate team, we thank you all for your contribution and coming out and seeing what our team has put so much effort into this year. Thank you once again, and for all the students, make sure you get all your work done and turn it into your professors when they designate it. Have a good night.